Going live. Going live. And it says that we are live. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. How are we doing? It's Saturday morning. It's 8 a.m. Central Time, 9 a.m. East Coast Time. If you're watching this right now, you are catching Caliber Corner at its new, old, proper time. And today we have episode number 138, where we're going to discuss the basics of gun trusts, NFA, gun trust, kind of the differences between the two, why you might want to consider that versus like an estate sale or a will. And we're also going to talk about 9mm Major. What is it and why should you care? It's an interesting little caliber, and hopefully Foose will show up because he kind of put the bug in our minds about this caliber last week. Just want to say right now, we can always have discussions about the looting and rioting that's going on. That's not a problem. If it comes up in the discussion, that's great. All I'm going to say right now is if you're watching this, have a plan. Have a plan for yourself, have a plan for your family in terms of what you're going to do to stay safe today or the next couple days, because it looks like stuff's lighting up all over the place. Even in Podunk, Omaha, Nebraska, where we just got cable and running water last week, people still want to ride and go storming the local Target. So just be safe today, please. Do what you got to do to take care of you and your family. Don't get lazy and, just make sure that you're safe. So anyway, let's go ahead and let the panel introduce themselves, and then we'll see who's joining us on the YouTube side. And starting in the top left corner here, we've got Rich White. Rich, what do you know, man? What's going on?
Yeah, doing all right. And we don't got no riots here so far, so it's all good.
All right.
They really don't have anything to riot and destroy really here, so I guess that could be reasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not attacking Walmarts yet, so.
Yeah, I'm surprised they want to go to Target where the good stuff is, right? They want the name brand stuff, not they don't want Walmart. They get Walmart every day. They want a taste of the high life, so they want to go to Target. God. Oh, geez. All right, man.
Well, like I said before we got live, it's because of that bullseye on the front door. It just makes
exactly. The Target is the Target. And like we were talking about before the chat started, I'm kind of curious if Target will change their policy because they don't encourage open carry. They say, they discourage you from carrying firearms in their store. They don't say you can't conceal carry. But it'll be interesting to see if they change their policy or if they crank it up so it's a zero weapons across the board policy. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, just if you're going to go to Target today to take some merchandise back, you're probably going to have to wait. So anywho. All right, Rich, I appreciate you being here, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All
right, AWAG, what's going on, brother? How you doing? He said he had to take his doggies out. I don't know if you want me to introduce him right now or if he's going to come back. We'll come back to him in a second. Okay, so moving over, we got Squid Load. Squid, what's going on, bro? How you doing, man? There he is.
And just now, it started roboting. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you just fine, dude. No problem. I got a pretty solid connection. I'm running hardwired, so we should be good.
It could be on my end. Yeah, today's episode is brought to you by Arbuckle's Mexicali Coffee. I just made some for the first time before you sent out the links and filmed a review. So I'll have that out in the next, couple weeks, maybe something like that. Pretty good coffee. It kind of reminds me of that holiday grog that you sent me from Blackout.
Yeah, so you kind of got some ginger going on and you kind of got some clove,
I couldn't think of the word. Clove. Yes, that's it.
Clove.
I'm not going to reshoot the video.
Just put that in the script. So Squib, you do test a lot of beverages and, we talk about kind of developing your palate and your taste buds. Pay a lot of attention to what you consume those other beverages because they're going to produce flavors that can show up in the coffee. So, like the maltiness or the bitterness or the chocolate that I'm always talking about. So really, really think when you're drinking your other beverages, when you do your other tests, I think you're going to develop a pretty good palate for the bouquet that the coffee can provide you. That's kind of what I do.
I mean, I don't think you're ever going to hear me say this coffee tastes like beer.
You'd be surprised. You might be surprised. Or bourbon. All right. Okay, so Squib's with us again. Good stuff. And also joining us, another fellow Nebraskan, Sandhill Shooters out there. Sandy, what are you doing today, man? What's going on?
I got to go to work here in a little bit. So, it's one of those fun Saturdays where I had a day off in the middle of the week. And now I got to go to work. But after that, the fire pit's going to get lit up this evening as long as the rain gets it out of its system. So anybody that's close to my house, come on by and sit on the patio, and we'll maintain respectable distances and bring your own beverage. We'll just hang out by the fire tonight. Come on over.
When you said you're going to light the fire pit up, I thought maybe you're going to start rioting or something. I was getting kind of scared. I was like, dude.
I thought you was ready to
no,
light it up tonight.
just for safety's sake, for the good of the crowd here that will be at my house, all probably 4 people. I am going to abstain from any alcoholic beverages just in case that I need to break out a firearm and defend my castle from any rioting or looting that's going on in the territory. So I haven't heard of any in my town, but it's not that far away now, it sounds like. So it's craziness. Real quick, I do want to do a shameless plug, but not for myself. Speaking of, a discerning palate and tasty beverages, check out the Party Foul Nation YouTube channel. Every Friday they have beer for brunch, which actually happens now in the evening time. But it's Party Foul Steve and Matt Locke are just kind of talking about whatever. It's a not safe for children chat, usually with language. It is for grown-ups, as are the beverages that they're drinking. But they feature a different beer or a couple different beers every week, and they're usually from local breweries around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So check those out, and you might be able to get your hands on some of the beverages that they test out and give you their opinions on. So check those out. Party Foul Nation channel on YouTube.
Yeah, if you can safely get out, if the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area is not in flames, go check out Lakewood Brewery. I think that's in Garland. Lakewood's really good. Four Corners is really good. I've got family down in Texas, so we do partake in some of those locations when I go down there. They've got some really cool places to go check out. So good stuff. Yeah, it's an awesome program, and guys, make sure you do check it out. All right, and also joining us, another fellow Nebraskan, Pat Hirsch. Pat, how's it going, man?
Going pretty good. Hopefully you can all hear me. I'm running a different rig this weekend and just trying something different out, a little easier on the ears and stuff. So just out and about checking my cows this morning, and glad to be on. So hopefully I don't drop in and out too much. So, but I got more questions than I do answers this week. So definitely on the gun trust part of it. So maybe I can get some questions answered here today.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Looking forward to the chat.
Yeah, that's fine. The links that I sent out to all the panelists, guys, I'm going to post in the description box of this podcast when we get done, so you guys can check out the sources I went to. And just a quick reminder, guys, today's episode is brought to you by SS Pond, Lexington, Nebraska. I want you guys to take the exit off Interstate 80 to go into Lexington, Nebraska. A fun, peaceful place to go. You're safe there. Stop over to SS Pond, say hello to Stan, and SS Pond will take care of your firearms needs, just like they took care of mine. All right, so Pat, I might be moving west if things light up here in Lincoln. I just want you to know that. No, I'm just messing with you, man. But yeah, it's interesting stuff in Nebraska. There was some rioting going on in Omaha. It started off as a peaceful protest, and then it turned into some ugliness around 10 a.m. And to see the reaction of the people when tear gas gets fired at them live, people that Nebraskans have probably never had that experience before, it was an interesting, I guess you could say kind of humorous experience, because people are just freaking out like, oh my God, this is real. Yeah, you went to a bad place, people. You shouldn't have gone there. And seeing people just screaming, running away, and tear gas flying all over the place, it's like, wow, this is some crazy stuff. So, oh, man. But anyway, let's see who's joining us over on the YouTube side. We've got Ozzy Orsborn out there. We got some tacos and French fries, Justin Gibbons. Patriot in the Dark, Ronald Robertson's out there. He's one of the first people here. Squibblehead's out there over here. SS Pond says, gonna listen while replacing a dead tree. Hey, man, that's what we're for, man. Here to help you get through your morning, get through your weekend. Defense Dad will send you a link here in just a minute to get you to join us. You said you'd like to join in. That'd be great to have you here. I've been doing some collab stuff with Defense Dad. He's a really cool dude, another fellow Nebraskan, just across town from me. Black Hat Outdoors is out there. Scott P79's in the house. Let's see. I can see, what does Scott P79 say? I can see maybe burning down the police station, CNN, but attacking local businesses is just stupid. Yes, that's right. Justin Gibbons is out there too. Echo of 7mm .8 is out there. Rich White's out there and over here. And then there is me. Tara Smith says, hello. Small Caliber Arms Review says, I'm here too. All right. Very good stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and send an invite out here to Defense Dad as soon as I get his email address so he can join us. So if I kind of pause for a second, you guys know what's going on. So we're going to start up talking about gun trust this morning. What is a gun trust? I got to be honest with you. This was something I didn't really think about nor really care much about, for the simple fact that my wife and I don't really have children. We don't really have heirs to our property. But a gun trust is a very smart thing to consider. I'm not going to get super technical because you can make a gun trust as technical as you want to. And I'm not going to tell you where to go to set one up. I would highly recommend, say, a family attorney or a local law firm, just in case there's questions or problems. You can get to somebody quickly if you need to change something or modify something. There are a lot of online gun trusts you can set up for $49.95. I'm not going to say yes or no on those, but the nice thing about going through an attorney is that you have an opportunity to put as much detail into the gun trust as you possibly can. And AWAG, are you back with us real quick before we start up on this? Are you back from taking out the pooches? I take them on a walk. Okay. All right. So the gun trust, we're just going to go right into this. I want you guys to think of, and if you post questions on the YouTube side, hey panel, if you can kind of let me know what the questions are, I'll try to answer them. I don't know the specific names of every technical form you have to fill out for these things, but if there's a question, I'm just going to be reading off that document that I sent you guys this morning. So I want you guys to think of a gun trust as kind of a corporation, okay? And that's the analogy I'm going to use from the website that I got this information from. They do a great, simple explanation of how a gun trust works. Now, how much does a gun trust cost? It depends on how much time you need with your attorney, or whatever service you use online, because a gun trust could be as cheap as $50. It could cost $400, $500, $600, $700, depending on what your attorney bills per hour for the gun trust. Okay, so think about a corporation. What is a corporation? Who's involved in a corporation? All right, so usually the corporation has a founder. Okay, many times that can be the CEO, but not always. Okay, so think about your armory, think about your property, your firearms as the corporation. You are the CEO. You are the founder of the plan for that property. And then the step below the CPO, you get the CEO, you get your president, you get your vice president. Okay, those are what we would consider the trustees or possibly the co-trustees. Those are the people that are kind of in charge of the day-to-day operations of the property. All right, think about the shares and the stock that the company has, the mass that the company occupies as the property. Okay, and then you get below that, and then you get into kind of department heads and other executives, and you can almost think about those people as the beneficiaries of the trust. All right, so let me just kind of read this to you. This is very simple, and then we can talk about some questions you might have. So the first part of a trust is the settlor, S-E-T-T-L-O-R, also known as the creator of the trust. Think of them as the board of directors of a corporation. The settlor creates the trust by giving it some property. Okay, the property would be your armory, your weapons, your NFA weapons, your suppressors, your machine guns, your short-barreled shotguns, anything that you want to put into it, your legally owned firearms, your basic firearms, and so on. The settlor has little to do with day-to-day operation of the trust, but they give advice and direction to other members of the trust. Okay, the settlor can add and remove property, your firearms, your items from the trust at any time, and they can kill the trust stone dead whenever they want by removing all the property out of the trust. So if you're the creator, you're the settlor, you have control over what happens to your stuff, who's in control of getting it to the people that are supposed to get it, and what exactly you're going to include in that list of items. Okay, we'll just call it that. The property in a gun trust, okay, money or NFA items donated by the settlor, your guns, is much like the stock of the corporation. The money and ideas donated by the board of directors in a corporate terminology. Okay, each time the settlor gives property to the gun trust, the donation is recorded as an assignment sheet. The assignment sheet contains a detailed description of each piece of property, make, model, serial number, etc., and must be signed by the settlor and witnesses to prove the property was given to the trust. Now, that trust is confidential. You're like, well, I'm not putting my name and number and serial numbers, blah, blah, blah. No. This is going to go to a place where it's going to maintain confidentiality, and the only people that have access to those items are going to be the trustees, the people that you trust to help maintain that property. Okay, now there's specific questions about this that I might not be able to answer, but I have a pretty good idea as to how this works. Now, the level below the settlor or the creator is the trustee. That's the person that manages the trust, much like the CEO of a corporation. The trustee makes all the day-to-day decisions for the trust, including the purchase or sale of trust property. That's the part right there where you want to be specific with your attorney, and you decide whether or not the trustee can legally sell the stuff that you set up for the trust, those guns, those suppressors, and so on. You can allow that to happen. So if something happens to you, the trustee would be able to move that property to another person, sell it, and so on. And just like the CEO, the trustee gets some really cool benefits, such as spending time at the range playing with trust property. When you put your NFA firearms, when you put your NFA items, your guns into a trust, all the trustees are essentially co-owners. They can take possession of those items once you go through the proper channels and they get themselves set up and registered as part of the trust and the government. They can take those items to the range and use them, say your suppressors or your machine guns or your short barrel firearms. Okay, so they're able to do those things. The nice thing about that is if you do that if you file as an individual, if I just go buy a suppressor, technically it would be illegal for me to hand it off to Sandhill Shooter at the range. He's not even supposed to touch it because he's not a person registered to have that item. Okay. Now I know all this stuff is completely ridiculous. It shouldn't even exist, but unfortunately that's a legal situation we're in right now. So trustees are the next level down from the settler. Okay, then after that, you get a co-trustee, okay? So the co-trustees of a trust are much like the swarm of vice presidents in a corporation. Co-trustees have a lot of power as they can legally possess and use NFA items owned by the trust, just like the trustees, right? However, co-trustees don't have the power to swap out a suppressor for a pinball machine. So a co-trustee does not have the power to move out the inventory in a way that it's never going to come back, okay? So yes, just like the corporate VPs, co-trustees get some pretty cool benefits, such as the opportunities to use the silencers, the SBRs, and other firearms in the trust. The difference between the trustee and the co-trustee is the trustee has more control over what happens to everything. The co-trustee can't supersede the laws that the trustee has to enforce that are created by the settler, all right? And then the last part, this is where your kids, your family members start to fall into it. This is the last part that I'm going to talk about before we get into discussing the trust. You've got the beneficiaries, all right? Anybody in the trust can be considered a beneficiary by legal definition. The beneficiaries of a trust, but there's lower level beneficiaries, okay? The recipients, your kids that are going to get your stuff. The beneficiaries of a trust have no say in how the trust is operated, what property gets added to or removed from the trust, or how the trust property is used, much like the investors in a corporation. Okay, they're there, they're attached to it, but they don't get to make the daily decisions on how operations are carried out. However, at some point down the road, beneficiaries will be rewarded. So when you're gone and the property in the trust is now designated to the beneficiaries, they get to benefit on it because those items get to go to those people once, if they can legally receive them, and once they're of age, okay? So when the settler dies, all the trust property goes to the beneficiaries, much like the proceeds from selling corporate stock to the investors. All right, so that's kind of in a nutshell how to compare a trust to a corporation. Now, there's certain parts about it like, well, who do I make a trustee or who do I make a co-trustee? That's completely up to you. Myself, not having children, my firearms are going to be passed off to other family members that are not immediate family, but they are gun people, they're Pro 2A people, they're people I want my property to go to when it's all said and done. I did hear a couple questions pop up on the panel here. Let's see. Sandhill Shooter says, I think it's legal to hand me suppressor as long as you're with me. Technically, you're still in possession of it. Yeah, I can't. I think you're right as long as we're within eyesight. But in terms of you, say, taking it or walking off with it or getting out of line of sight, then you can't just go take it over to the other side of the range if I can't see you. Yeah, I don't.
You could be at the range together and be like, hey, man, you want to shoot my yeah, absolutely. And you're not breaking the law.
Yeah.
If you're like, hey, man, can I borrow your suppressor for hunting? Now you're in trouble.
Yeah, so when you get into it. All right, so do we have any questions popping out over on the YouTube side right now? Anybody have any questions popping up over there? Yeah, so G-Web says you can hand your NFA stuff to others to use in front of you. Just can't loan it to use. Yeah, I'm sorry. That was my bad on that. I was a little bit, I just had myself ever so slightly confused. Yeah, so your NFA items, but so Justin Gibbons says, is there something that needs to be done anymore instead of just settling a will? And I'm a little bit behind, but are you supposed to take your willed or given to an FFL now? The difference between the trust and the will is that the firearms that go in the trust can be passed on to the trustees. There's a lot less stipulations that are involved in it. There's more control over the property. Whereas if I just have a will that says that my guns go to my kids when I'm gone. There could be a lot more red tape involved in getting those firearms to the kids. What if I pass away and there's nobody else here? Then people show up to empty out the apartment, police, whoever, whatever, or I don't know, the rental company comes and they find all these firearms. It could be a major hassle to get those to my kids. Even though there's a will, the trust gives you much more immediate access to that property, and it makes it easier for you to pass on those items, especially NFA items, without having to do you can add people to the trust without having to worry about taking out an additional tax stamp every time you add a person to the trust. That's another advantage to it. Okay. Disadvantages is personal relationships. You know, you might make your spouse or significant other the trustee, and they might not want to do it willingly. They might not necessarily want to be part of that. So that could be part of the issue. You know, you might say, well, and if the trust says that the firearms and the items go to the beneficiaries, that's where they have to go. All right. But the nice thing is, if something happens to you, you become incapacitated and so on, there's a plan for where your stuff goes. And especially if sale of these items would ever happen to be banned, they can still stay within the possession of the family, which is another important thing too. So guys, what questions do you have? Pat Hirsch, you had a question. What was something you're kind of curious about? Sorry to talk your head off, but I wanted to get just the gist out of a firearms trust, the way I understand it, okay, in general. Pat, do you have a question? No? Yes? No? Okay, so we're still live? Crickets? All right. Okay, so guys, do you have any questions at all?
So when you pass off, say I own an
can you
SBR.
hear me? All right.
Oh, Pat, you're kind of roboting out.
Yeah, can you guys hear me or not?
No, it's roboting pretty hard, buddy. Okay, Pat, if we get you back in, if you want to type your question, if you get a chance, Pat, go ahead and put it on the internal chat. Otherwise, we'll try to get to you when we can. So, all right. So, AWAC, go ahead, man.
So if I were to say own an SBR and I trust it to one of my friends, and we go through all the material that is able for me to trust that to them, when I transfer that to him, would there still be would you still have to go through like a 4473 or some sort of log that shows that it is now in his possession?
For the way that I understand it, one of the advantages is you don't have to pay that additional tax stamp fee, but that person does have to have, I believe that there's documentation that has to be filled out that the person has to have filed. I believe that photographs also have to be submitted as if they were buying an SBR for the first time, or there's certain records that have to be followed. But if they meet those records, then they can take the legal ownership, or the trust maintains the legal ownership of that firearm that can be basically checked out by the members of the trust, the trustees.
Yeah, anything if you have to any paperwork you have to fill out to get a tax stamp, all the trustees have to go through that process. They have to go through background check and stuff to make sure that they're eligible to be put on that trust and be able to possess that firearm or accessory that would be an NFA item.
Now, there was a 41F rule that had changed, and I know a lot of people were trying to get their trust stuff set up before that 41F rule had passed back in 2017 or 2018. I believe it had added some additional stipulations, but it had also taken some stuff away. Like I believe there was an approval from a CLEO, is what they call it, a chief law enforcement officer, that had to be approved. And I don't know if that was for the trust to become legitimate exactly, but I know that no longer has to happen. You don't have to have approval. You just have to give that CLEO notification that there is a trust or that those items do exist. So that was one part of it that did change, but I think there were more stipulations that got added on to setting up the trust, because I know it's kind of a big deal that everybody wanted to get them set up in 2018. So, but again, the basic idea is that by having the trustees, they do have access to those firearms. They do have access to those items. Now, there's kind of a difference between the NFA trust and a non-NFA trust. Your non-NFA trust would be your non-NFA regulated items, your standard pistols, handguns, rifles, guns that you have in your armory that didn't require any kind of a tax stamp. But you can still have a plan for those firearms so that they can go somewhere. Now, the other question, one of the reasons why I'm actually covering this topic is somebody said, well, what about red flag laws? And what happens if something gets called on you? You are the settler. You have the firearms in your possession. The police show up. You're deemed not capable of owning, not supposedly having to have firearms for whatever reason. Your firearms get confiscated. What happens then? And I could not find a solid answer on anywhere. I couldn't find a specific answer. I believe that the trust is going to set the precedent as to what happens to the property. It might be confiscated by the police, but it still has to go back to the trust because the trust is the property owner, not the individual. Okay. You're the creator, you're the seller. You set it up, but the trust is the pool where everything goes that belongs to everyone else that's considered a trustee. So there could be a time when those items are taken, but I believe that the law says they have to go back to the trustee because they are the person in control of the distribution of the property. So that's one thing to consider. So and a part of it too is with the whole red flag development being something that's only popped up in the last couple of years, and the trust categories and everything changing in the last 2 to 3 years. I couldn't find a solid answer from it, but my guess, and from what I'd seen from the attorney videos that I had watched, the assumption is that the property stays in the trust, so it doesn't necessarily belong to the individual. So, it kind of depends on how you feel about it. Do you guys have any questions or comments or anything you want to say about that at all?
Well, I would say in the case of red flag laws, though, we've already seen instances where firearms got removed from the home that were not owned by the individual against whom that order was served. So if the order got served on, say the guy's name was Bill and the order served on Bill, but Bill has a roommate named Tom, and Tom's guns got taken away too, then we've already seen an instance kind of like that where the guns that Tom owns got taken by the police, and it still was a long drawn-out process for him to get those back. So I don't think it really matters who owns the firearms so much as the fact that they're in possession of the person at the time the red flag order is served. They're going to take every gun that they find in that house. And then again, it falls back on the owner to try to get those back. It's the department's not going to do anything they don't have to do. That's what we've seen in a few instances across the country. So I don't see where having it in a trust would be any different than the fact that, this gun isn't mine, it's my roommate's, but you guys took it anyway.
Yeah. Now, there's kind of some chat going on over on the YouTube side. So Justin Gibbons says, now, this might be out of the realm, but what if you had just bought guns at a farm sale years ago, no paperwork? How do you go about that? LOL. And this is like I'd mentioned before, those items have to be listed on the roster for the trust. They're not necessarily registered, so to speak, with law enforcement or ATF or whatever. But of course, if you buy those at a farm sale, whatever your state laws require you to do, you'd have to go through that process, unfortunately. But there is a record of what the guns are so that people know specifically what goes where and to whom. Okay. So G-Web says, all this trust talk is about registered guns. Guns off the register are different. Yeah, so from the way I understand it, there simply needs to be a roster or a register with the attorney as part of the trust so they know specifically what happens. I'm guessing, okay, again, this is all just speculation because I haven't actually set up a trust, but it depends on what you specifically need to do and what your state law requires. But I would imagine that there needs to be, so that way, I mean, if that random shotgun's just sitting there, when your nephew just doesn't walk up and walk off with it because it might belong to the trust. So I would say put in the trust whatever you want to protect those items to ensure that they go where they need to go. Now, this stuff is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, unfortunately, it is reality, and I'm not encouraging anybody, to want to agree to this or want to go along with it. I'm just saying that that's kind of the reality of what happens with our farms right now. Should we fight it? Should we say these shouldn't be necessary? Should you be able to just have a handwritten note that says all my guns go to my kids? Yeah, great, wonderful. It should be that simple, but unfortunately, it's not right now. Okay, but I'm just simply talking about the reality of what exists. So, and I'm not telling people to go along with it. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. Will I set one up? Probably, because we don't have children, and I want to make sure that my firearms go to a place where they're going to be safe, where they can be passed on for future generations, whether they are my kids or not. Okay, I want them to stay in the family, so to speak.
Yeah, and
so that's good.
Mind, firearms aren't the only items that get put into trust.
Yes.
Money gets put into trust. Gold, jewelry, and whatnot gets put into trust. Automobiles get put into trust. Anything that has any value can be put into a trust to make sure it gets to where it's supposed to go in the event something catastrophically wrong happens to you, whether you're put in a vegetative state, you're killed in a car accident, whatever. It's to protect your property and make sure it goes where it's supposed to go. Because sometimes wills just aren't enough.
Land also gets put into a trust.
Yeah, that's another one. Anything that has any kind of real value can be put into a trust.
See, something like a house or a land or a vehicle or something like that. It's kind of big. It's immobile. That's something where it might get tied up in court, and you're going to need that sort of documentation so that it's not tied up in court any longer than it needs to be. But as far as guns, I kind of like the old hillbilly way, and that is you drive all night to get there before any of your relatives do, and you make sure all the guns are in your trunk before they show up and go, I don't know what happened. He must have done sold them. I'm not saying that I have any experience with that, but
well, the local pawn shop opens at 9, right? Yeah. You guys can go find out over there. Go take off. Oh, man. So now I want to talk just a little bit more. There's a second article that I'll include links for. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say thanks for the invite. I've got to get into work, so I'm going to duck out. Have a great weekend, everybody. Later.
No problem, man. In Sandhills we trust, man.
Yeah.
You have a good one, bud.
Yeah, I have one more point if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
If my grandfather would have had a firearms trust set up, I would have had my Model 27 Smith & Wesson. As it stands, he didn't, and I don't, because my family screwed me over when it came to my getting that. Even though it was in his will that I was supposed to get it, they've never got me the firearm, and I have no legal recourse for that. If it would have been a trust, I would have.
Some of the complications you could run into is, okay, you've got this honeypot of goodies. You might have to have stipulations in the trust saying who can have access to them and for how long can they have access to them for. Because what if, Rich, you and I are brothers, and there's a bunch of suppressors in the trust, and I'm with the 30 cal suppressor, so I'm going to take it, and I got it for 6 months, and you want it back. How do you do that? I mean, there's going to be a social aspect that needs to be worked out with the family, so everybody understands that you want to keep things civil. So, I mean, but again, even with the trust, you couldn't necessarily legally go after another person for property in the trust, because the trust is the binding agreement that everybody who's a trustee belongs to, right?
Yeah, I would have been listed as the beneficiary that would have got the Model 27, which means legally the lawyer would have had overseen the trust, would have made sure all those firearms got distributed to who they were supposed to give, which means legally, if the lawyer wouldn't have done his job and the family tried screwing me over, because that being a trust, I would have a legal recourse to go out to the lawyer's office for malpractice on the lawyer's part and for the family for theft.
Exactly, man. Patriot in the Dark says, Travis, sorry I didn't get back to you earlier, but I'll be a beneficiary in your trust. Who knows? I might just include all of you in it. I got no kids to leave my guns to. Let's see who people watching today. I should just award every person watching this podcast a piece from the armory. They can just be in the. So if you get some trust paperwork in the mail, please don't shred it and throw it away. Make sure you sign it and get it back to me, okay? G-Web says, put your dogs on the trust so they get your guns if you're in a plane wreck or something. Then if you swim to shore and survive, your dog will probably give them back to you because they will be real happy to see you. I think so. Arson Tony, just don't chew on the stock, LOL. Yeah, that might be a problem. Oh, man. So here's some just additional information I want to share with you real quick. So this is another article that says, what if I become incapacitated? So like specifically what's going to happen? It says the trust is designed to operate if you become incapacitated. If you have named another person as the current trustee, then that person can legally hold these items while you are incapacitated. If you have not named someone as a current trustee, then the trust designated by this law firm that's advertising this has a successor trustee provision that kicks in so that anyone named in that provision can step up to be a trustee and legally possess the firearms outside of your physical presence. So I would say make sure that you have a provisional trustee or an additional person lined up so that there is a backup plan. Say, families go on trips. Things happen to families, unfortunately. Bad things can happen to people. Make sure you have a plan. The whole idea is that it doesn't fall back into the hands of, whatever, law enforcement, Uncle Sam, etc. The other one says, who can I assign to be a beneficiary of my trust? Anyone who is not a prohibited person can be a beneficiary of the trust. A prohibited person is defined in the trust and by statute. So, for example, if someone is a felon, they are a prohibited person. You can name minors as beneficiaries. So can you name your kids? Yes, you can. The blah, blah, blah law firm Gun Trust has a successor trustee provision that kicks in to allow an adult to hold the firearms until the minor beneficiaries are 25 years old. I don't know if that particular portion has changed because you don't have to be 25 years old to own a handgun. So it might depend on the state. You might be able to get it set up. I don't know why they say that. The 25 years old thing might be part of this website and what this particular law firm has to follow according to state statute. So that's one thing I can't answer on that. And it says, so who should be the trustee? Okay, who do you want to be the trustee? Initially, the person who owns the items will be the trustee. Keep in mind that this is a revocable living trust, so it's owned by and under the control of the seller. So the seller could be the initial trustee, just to let you know. The seller is also the trustee. You can appoint other people as trustees as needed. If, for example, a member of the military is deployed, he or she might want to appoint another family member, such as the father, as a co-trustee so that the NFA items can be stored at his house. Now, that's NFA specific, but again, we're just talking about the idea of trustees in general. Or, for example, if you want to go hunting with a friend in South Texas for the weekend, you can appoint that person as a trustee for that weekend and make it expire a few days after the trip. Then that person can borrow your firearm and use it outside of your physical presence while he is hunting. Now, granted, you're going to have to pay your legal fees to get that set up, but maybe you don't care. You want somebody to be able to use your suppressor as long as they're listed as a trustee on that trust and everything is followed according to the way it's supposed to be followed. They can have that property and without any kind of legal recourse. And then finally, it says, if I already own an NFA weapon that I wish to transfer into the trust, may I transfer it without paying an additional transfer tax? So if you want to transfer ownership of an NFA firearm, you must pay a tax, even if you transfer it from you as an individual to you as a trust. There's no getting around the transfer tax to move it into a trust. As they say, there's two things certain in life, death and taxes. Oh, that's fitting from a law firm. So anyway, that's kind of the basic idea behind it. Martin Korf has a $5 super chat. Martin, any questions? Anything you want to say, buddy? All right, man, post a question if you have one, all right? Let's see. Fluffy 10mm Jeep guy says, my X-Star shipped yesterday, should have it around Wednesday. That is awesome. Now, Artisan Tony says, I'm assuming it'll cost $1,500 to set up a trust. If my kids want my guns, they're going to have to pay me $1,500 now, LOL. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I honestly have not, myself personally, I mean, I don't know if I've ever had to pay for like hourly legal services for anything I've ever gone through in my life. So I don't know what a law firm books. Our family has an attorney that we do go to, but I'm not sure about the actual price itself. So it's kind of hard telling.
I can tell you how much a divorce attorney costs.
Okay, so what is it? I'm curious, man. What's it cost to get a divorce these days?
About $5,000. Somebody out there is going to go,
wow.
No, I did it for $1,000 or $3,000. I'm telling you, it's about $5,000. It's not that the actual divorce, like if you're in and out, if you have the most minimal amount of contact with the court as possible, it's that they charge a retainer and they can hold that retainer. If you go, okay, you only used $1,000 of the $5,000 retainer, I want my $4,000 back. They're going to tell you to go get bent. They have legal protection, the lawyer does, to hold that retainer. Now you can go back to them later on and say, all right, I want to use, 2 more hours of paralegal time, or I need you to go to court and deal with this. And they'll eat out of that retainer until they run out. But if you leave like a $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 retainer with them, you can't get a refund. So I don't know if that would work with this. If I was going to look for a lawyer to do a trust, I'd probably go to my FFL because he deals with NFA items. And if he didn't know, then I'd probably get a hold of one of my state gun rights organizations and say, hey, are there any lawyers in our group? And would they do something like this? I'd rather have a gun guy handle this than just, Joe Blow divorce attorney deal with this sort of thing.
Yeah, and there are very specific, you want to definitely test out the waters and check around because there are many firearm specific law firms that deal in things like that, whether it's, defensive shooting situations or setting up a firearms trust. You want to definitely go to a place that's going to be specific. Now, there are a lot of places online that say, well, we're a $49.95, trust establishing fee law firm and we'll, but that's also like you're saying with the retainer fee. So having your attorney could also become a very expensive option, especially if you have to pay that retainer fee. So, this is not something that's cheap. It's more about just ensuring that your property, it's more of the principle behind it, that the property stays within the family and can be, passed off to future generations. But once you set it up, it's established and done. So the sooner you can set it up, the better. And we all know that, fees and costs go up as time goes on anyway. So.
Now, that's not to say that you might sit down and talk with them and they say, this is how much it costs. And that they may not necessarily charge you a retainer like a divorce attorney will. Like in a bankruptcy type thing, they have a fee, right? And they turnkey, that's what it costs. So they may do this like a will or a bankruptcy or some other sort of, even though the trust can be changed at a later point. I don't know if they would want a retainer so that they could handle that, or if how they would do that. So I'm not saying just because in family court, you're stuck like that. That you're going to get stuck like that setting up a trust. There's different lawyers. I had one lawyer give me a really good price on a divorce. Gave me the family discount. I had another lawyer that, I would, every time I got a speeding ticket, he'd go to traffic court with me and get the points taken off. And all I had to do was buy him lunch. So you got a lot of free lunches. So, I mean, it just really depends. If you know a lawyer, they may say, I don't specialize in this, I don't want to touch it. Or they might be able to hook you up. So it's just something to look into.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And there's already people chatting out there on the YouTube side saying, "Oh yeah, I got an attorney that'll set up for me for free." Hey, more power to you, man. That's great. G23 says, "I have a friend that's a lawyer, so I don't pay full price." Now, GWeb said, in fact, for a while, FloridaCarry.org was offering a free gun trust with yearly membership a while back. No. Yeah, and then also I'm noticing a lot of suppressor stores, if you buy your suppressor and go through the process, they also are setting up a free trust for you. Now, I don't know, how much time they're going to give you for setting that up or how much detail you get to put into it. But if you buy the suppressor, they say it's like a $250 value or $300 value to get that trust set up for free. They file it as part of the paperwork when you file for your tax stamp. Hey, Black Cat, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Not bad. How are you?
Doing okay, man. Doing okay. So what's kind of your take on the whole trust thing? How do you feel about it?
I talked to one guy online that I know that he's actually an SOT, so he deals with NFA trusts a lot.
Okay.
And basically what he was saying is, kind of covered it. His best reasoning for a trust was if you want to let somebody have access to your NFA items. Like you said, you want your buddy to be able to use your suppressor that you're going to share or whatever.
Without you having to be physically there with them, like I kind of screwed up earlier. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, unless you want, like you said, that's how machine gun rental places work. As long as you're there, they can let you use an NFA item. But yeah, if he wants to take your suppressor out west hunting with him or something, then if you put him on your trust, then you can do that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, that's part of the convenience of it too. And granted, it's expensive, but you've also put a lot of money into that machine gun. Don't you want to let the family do? Man, you spent $10,000 on that thing or $5,000 on that firearm. Yeah. Or $500 for that suppressor plus the tax stamp and all the other fun that goes with it. Yeah.
Now, I did ask him about the whole inheritance thing, specifically with NFA stuff. It does make it somewhat simpler, but everybody else left on the trust, you have to have it written in how your trust moves to whoever the next person down the line would be, and they still have all access to that stuff. Now, if you wanted to leave it to a specific son or something, you'd be better off doing that as an individual, because as long as the person's not prohibited from owning it, all that would have to happen is it has to go through the SOT to an SOT for a transfer, and there's actually no fee to transfer on an inheritance. So you don't have to repay the tax stamp again. You just would have to go. You would have to go to an SOT for however long it takes to get a stamp to go through.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
That was the way he explained it to me, because he's done that for quite a few people. He gets, like I said, he deals as an SOT, so he gets people transferring stuff back and forth all the time. He's done that for people before. And it doesn't even matter, even if the executor would not be able to take it. Say the executor was was your daughter in New Jersey, she can't take that. She can send it to an SOT, and then whoever can get it would have to go. Now, if you're in different states, then it gets a little different. A different state, even in a trust or not, it might have to go shipped from an SOT to an SOT. You know what I mean? It would have to go different dealers like that.
It's just like if you've got that machine gun, that registered machine gun, obviously you can't just go sell a normal gun transaction to somebody in another state over. You have to go through the ridiculous process. It's stupid that you have to, but still,
Well, it's all it's all crap, but
it is. I mean, at least this way you can keep it in the family, so to speak, and make sure that people can enjoy it down the road. And then once that person receives a property, they can set the trust up themselves and pass it off to their kids or their family, so you can keep the cycle going, so everything is staying within the family for generations down the road. So hey panel, you guys got any questions at all? Any specific details you wanted to ask about, or anything you're kind of curious about? Good to go. Let's see. Now, there was a question that Justin Gibbons says, is buying a suppressor still a 2 to 6 month wait, or has it gotten better? I don't know. I mean, you hear stories, people say, yeah, I got it within 60 days, or I got it within 6 months. And I would recommend going through a place that's going to help you set up the paperwork at the time of purchase. I believe that there are stores here in Nebraska that do that. And so they will, you just don't go there and buy the suppressor and then you're on your own to get the paperwork set up. They do have it set so that you can they'll go through the process with you, give you the forms, and then you just got that wait, and then eventually you're able to take delivery of your suppressor and NFA class items.
Yeah, I heard that there's stores that use the electronic application process for the tax stamp for getting theirs back sooner than people that are filing the actual paperwork versions.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I know the e-file ones were going through in like 30 to 60 days. So in some cases as quick as like 2-3 weeks, but I think it's extended now.
Yeah, everything's delayed and so on. Yeah.
If you deal with some place that can e-file for a suppressor, you can get them. They were going through pretty quick.
Okay. Oh, man. And I just want to throw just a random question out there for anybody watching this, anybody that's on the panel, anybody in the panel, or anybody in the YouTube side. I have to this is totally unrelated to trust, okay, but we'll be moving away from trust here shortly. I have to return a lower to Palmetto State Armory because they screwed up my order. And does anybody know how long does it take for them to get back to you now if you need to return an item? Has anybody ever done a return in PSA? It's been 3 days. I've got a lower that's sitting at SS Pawn, and I don't want to take delivery of it because it's not the right one. Serial numbers match. They just gave me the incorrect furniture or the wrong trigger that I paid for. Does anybody know how long it takes PSA to get back to you once you file a request for return? I'm just kind of curious.
No idea.
No, I've never had a problem before. I've ordered dozens of items from them, and I've never had something get screwed up where I've had to make a return. Especially for firearm, I have no idea how long it's going to take.
There's a channel called Uzi 9mm.
Oh yeah,
and he recently made a return to PSA, but I think it was an upper. I can't remember. And I thought he talked about how long it took to process that, but I'd have to go back and check. That would probably be where I would look. But I mean, Palmetto State, their online stuff is way different than their stores. I mean, it's night and day. So it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what happened was I ordered it with Magpul furniture on the pistol lower with the MOE grip and trigger guard, and they didn't give me that. They sent me their classic instead, and I ordered the one with the EPT trigger, and they sent me the standard trigger. So if they sent me the parts, I would be happy just swapping out the parts, and I'll take delivery of the lower. I'm hoping that's what I can do, but I don't know. I mean, hopefully it's kind of a pain because I paid a premium to get this stuff on it. Now, if I want to just take it and eat the loss and go add the parts myself, I got to drop like another $60 or $80 into it. So, DM Racer 321 said, "Hello, Travis P11. Hello, DMR Racer or DMMR Racer 321. Week and a half to 2 weeks. Okay." Artisan Tony says, "Probably better just order another lower." Tony, I waited 4 or 5 weeks for this to show up, and I know there's delays, and I'm not complaining, but it did. Yeah, it did take almost a month for it to show up, so I was very disappointed to see that they grabbed the wrong one. What really makes me mad is the sticker says MOE, complete lower, EPT trigger, and that's not what was in the box, but the serial number on the receiver matched the serial number on the box with the sticker. So somebody grabbed it and either didn't pay attention or maybe they just didn't have the parts and they just said the hell with it, we'll ship it anyway. I don't know. I have no idea how they screwed up. They've never messed up before, and I've ordered many, many lowers from them before, so I don't know. Question for the chat here. Reiki 1 says, is 762 by 25 Tokarev a more viable option if I want to get closer to 357 SIG ballistic performance? Squib, you want to chime in on this one?
Yeah, I just typed in a comment. Look, you can go get that surplus Tokarev pistol, but you may not be able to find mags for it. That's not to say that there aren't any out there, but there isn't an aftermarket company making reproduction mags, and they're not all interchangeable either. So it used to be back you could get the Tokarev pistol, you could get the holster, get an extra mag, there was a mag and a cleaning rod and a holster, you get the whole kit and caboodle. Nowadays, what I've been seeing or what I've experienced myself is you get a cardboard box, a gun, a mag, that's it, and no option to buy a spare mag or even a holster in some cases. And there were some sites that are no longer out there that were selling, surplus ammo, surplus mags, surplus holsters. and they're not around either. So the stuff's out there, but it's a little bit hard to find. I mean, you could probably find some stuff on eBay. I don't shop on eBay, but take your chances there. But don't think that one's interchangeable with the other. So somebody says, "Oh, look, $199 gun. This is great," and then you find out that some of the Tokarev ammo is $25 a box. I'm not saying all of it, and you can reload it, but I've had issues with my reloads and stuff. There are replacement parts out there. Wolf Spring sells all the springs. You can, from time to time, go to some of these places that specialize in surplus gun parts and find, this piece or that piece if you lose it. There's a little retainer clip that is really easy to lose on Tokarev pistols. But just because the gun is cheap, don't think that you might have problems later. I mean, I like the round, but I didn't buy the Tokarev pistols because I was looking for a carry gun or because I was thinking that these are cheap guns, so this is going to be my go-to gun. I bought them for the milsurp for the history kind of thing and the collectability. They're fun to shoot. My younger son, it's his favorite handgun caliber. So it does cost me, but if you're looking for a range toy or a daily, carry or something like that, I would probably push you off on the 357 SIG, even though I still say that's another why, but only because of availability of parts, magazines, things like that.
Yeah, there's another issue. Defensive ammo, you're pretty much not going to find any true defensive ammo in 7.62 by 25.
Is there
PPU makes it, and I can buy hollow points and make my own reloads. I know there's some people that say don't carry reloads, but whatever.
But PPU is the only one out there that I think you can think of that makes a hollow point that's in that. And PPU hollow points are great, but if you're looking for something like a critical duty, critical defense, HST round, something like that, they don't exist in 7.62.
The hollow point reloads that I do for 7.62 by 25 Tokarev, I think are Hornady.
Yeah, but
I'd have to go downstairs.
You gotta load.
You're not gonna find.
If somebody was, if he's just looking for collectability on the Tokarev pistol, or he just wants to have it or whatever, that's fine. But if this is going to be a regular, everyday kind of thing, I wouldn't go there. I'm not discouraging somebody from getting a Tokarev pistol. It's not your, hey man, I'm going to have a gun, 5 mags, and everybody makes a holster for this thing, and ammo's cheap, and parts are it's just not that. So the way he was kind of talking about it, if he's comparing it to 357 SIG, that instantly makes me think he's looking for something that he's not going to take out just once a year. He's going to take out often, in which case I would go with a more modern thing just for the availability.
Yeah, I was getting the same impression you were. That's why I was bringing up about the lack of actual pre-manufactured defensive ammo. That it really, the only thing other than PPU, if you're looking for a defensive ammo, it doesn't exist for that round. So it's
Well, I mean, it's just like my Martini Henry. I mean, for a while there, they were very cheap because so many of them were flooding into the country. Now the prices have gone up, but somebody goes, hey, look, I can get a rifle that I can, take down large game with if I want to, that I don't have to fill out any paperwork for because it's $18.99 or whatever. That's great. You have to make your own ammunition, and the brass cases cost $9 each. Now you still got the bullets, everything else, the powder, the primers, you have to get the press and the dies and everything. So you say, hey, I got this gun and it was on sale for $500 and I didn't have to fill any paperwork, and then find out you can't shoot it. So it's a good idea to do your research. Mm-hmm. If you think you're going to get a deal on a gun, or you think you're going to work within some of these laws to skirt this or skirt that, because you may be surprised later at the operational costs.
So let's get back to the original question. Performance-wise, 7.62 by 25 versus 357 SIG. What do you guys think? Not just aside from the fact, let's say this person wants to buy the gun. They want to buy one box of defensive ammunition. They want to keep it around as like a whatever gun, right? Power-wise, what do you guys think? I mean, 357 SIG is a fairly stout round. It does, certain loads of it do match, I believe, 357 Magnum, if I'm not mistaken. That was the whole idea behind making it, putting it in a semi-auto platform. I would say you really can't go wrong either way. But Squib's got a good point. You know, you also have an older milsurp gun. You might find newer magazines for it. The ammunition's going to be more expensive. Hey, Wag, what do you think, man?
You know, I'd have to be biased to the 357 SIG, but I do like the Tokarev round. But the only reason why I'm saying that the 357 SIG is because some guns you have better capacity for it. You know, the 226 that I use. Now I'm in New Jersey. All my magazines have to be blocked to 10, but you can have a 12 round capacity over the 8 round capacity of a Tokarev.
Yeah, but if we're going with the question of holistically, you're looking at 2 rounds that are going about the same velocity.
Yeah, they're very close.
One weighs 40 degrees more than the other.
Yeah, definitely 357 SIG because it's essentially, you know, it's a 9mm plus P plus.
So here's something interesting, guys. I'm over at reedsammo.com, and they're advertising a 762 by 25 100 grain Hornady XTP round, hollow point round. It says new exclusively from Reed's Ammunition and Research, .308 bullet diameter, 100 grain Hornady XTP hollow point. This round is a great game round for self-defense, packaged in 50 round boxes, 1,500 feet per second. So you'd have to do the energy calculations on what 100 grains at 1,500 feet per second are going to give you. But it says this ammunition is designed for all guns chambered in 762 by 25, not 763 Mauser. $33 a box. But that sounds like a pretty potent round. But then I just look up 357 SIG, and you can get a 357 SIG cartridge, 125 grain load, that'll run 1,450 feet per second. It's only 50 feet per second slower, but it's a much more substantial round, 25% larger round. So I don't think you're going to go wrong either way. I'll tell you what right now, if you're interested in 357 SIG, probably hands down one of the best deals in one is if you go over to CDNN. They've got SIG certified P226s with the rail in 357 SIG, and I think it's maybe like a 14 or 15 round capacity for $499. And they even have some of the German manufacturer frames. And those do have a 1-year warranty from SIG. So if you want to go 357 SIG and you don't mind a fairly large handgun, that's one of the least expensive ways to get into a good, solid platform, in my opinion. You know, you can also get whatever model of Glock is in 357 SIG. There's a lot of guns that are chambered in that. But I would just go the CDNN route, especially if I just want something for like a range gun, or if I just want something to have around the house, something I'm not planning on concealed carrying. There's also a P229, I believe, that was chambered in 357 SIG, but all those CDNN guns dried up shortly after the Texas church shooting, because I think it was the same firearm that the man that, can't remember his name now, that took down the bad guy in the church, whatever, however long ago that was a weapon that he used, the P229, and so those have all sold out. But you can buy them. I believe you can buy them new for about $1,000. But
there's been a lot of stuff out there for a while about, 762 by 25 Tokarev is armor piercing. It'll go through body armor. It runs at a high velocity. And you got to think about when this stuff was invented. People weren't wearing body armor back then. And this is an old round. It runs at a high velocity. What I've noticed with all my Tokarev pistols is if it ain't hot, the gun doesn't cycle. We experienced that at the range, Travis. Some of those rounds were not loaded to the military spec, as far as, they were downgraded a little bit, and we were having cycling issues. And if the round, it's a small, light round coming out of the barrel at high velocity. So you've got that, but I can't speak, for the designers back then, but I think that's a side effect. You've got to have it hot or it will not cycle the gun. So if it does have some ability to penetrate body armor, that was not, I don't think it was the design, it's kind of like an afterthought, or, oh, hey, guess it'll do this too. But I'm not buying it. I would think that you could have some plus P or plus P plus in modern caliber X that is going to perform the same or better. Not knocking the Tokarev round, but if you want this as your self-defense gun, your carry gun, your range toy, I just wouldn't go there. Range toy, yes, but not the only handgun you take to the range and all that. Honestly, and it gets a lot of hate, but 9mm do just fine. And I'm a 45 guy.
Whew, shots fired.
Right?
Hey, so Squib, would you agree with me? So Reiki 1 says, since most 7.62 by 25 Tokarev bullets are full metal jacket, can it over-penetrate a target? That was one of the things that people had advised against for carrying one of those Tokarev pistols, say, as your concealed carry or primary carry. Consider going with the self-defense round. With the hollow point round, you've got a better chance of a lack of over-penetration. Would that be an issue, Squib, you think, if you had to use that for self-defense?
Here's the thing. As a civilian, for carry purposes, I don't think it should be illegal to carry full metal jacket, but I wouldn't advise it. In the military, in combat, doesn't matter. I mean, there's people be talking about, hey, convention and hollow points and blah, 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 or, full metal jacket because that's just what you carry. Or the thing is, I wouldn't, if you're going to use this as your self-defense gun, I wouldn't load it with full metal jackets. I wouldn't load any self-defense gun with full metal jackets if I could help it. Full metal jackets are good for going to the range. As far as over penetrating, I mean, I did a range test with all kinds of different guns and different ammunition on drywall, and I couldn't believe how well this stuff just went right through. Even the frangible stuff went right through, right? So
yeah, there's some
I would say no matter what caliber you go with full metal jacket, or go with if you're inside a house, still go with frangible, but expect it to go through especially at close range, things that you hope it doesn't go through, or you don't, because it can just happen.
Yeah, Rack Veteran 8888, and then also Vigilance Elite. Those are two channels. I like Vigilance Elite's channel. They both did some tests with penetration levels and, going through drywall and, 2x4s and frames and doors and stuff like that. And it was amazing how some of the stuff could just penetrate through, even some of the hollow point stuff would penetrate more than you think it would. It's like, oh yeah, it's just going to dissolve after hitting that first little panel of drywall. Not necessarily. So yeah, definitely I got to agree with Squib that you want to make sure that you've got a good, hollow point round or proper self-defense round in your firearm, obviously. And the thing is, it's going to be it's going to be pricier if you run that ammunition, but just from a liability standpoint, I guess maybe an effectiveness standpoint, you're obviously going to want to go with something that's going to do as much. It's going to drop your target as quickly as possible. I guess you could say it's going to eliminate your threat as quickly as possible. So that's a good discussion because, again, you see the $200 Tokarevs popping up and a lot of people want to buy them, but they don't realize that the ammo might be a little hard to source locally. You might have to order it online. It's going to be expensive. I did, and it was pricey to take my CZ52 to the range.
Yeah, I mean, with keep going back to it, this question, that question, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, what about this? All right, it kind of sounds like I'm buying this gun come hell or high water. How am I going to make it work? Well, that's another one of those square peg and a round hole things. And so that's why I was advising what I was about. Do what you want to do. It's your money. But I just, as much as I like the round, as much as I like the guns, these are not daily carry guns. They were back when Warsaw Pact was a thing, and that was for the people in the Warsaw Pact. But it's not that. So I think you're going to end up with more problems in the long run than, it's like, well, I've only got $200 and I want a gun now. Well, then save up another $200 and get something newer that you're not going to have. Well, I want one now. Well, we all want one now. Okay.
Yeah.
So that just, that happens. I'm all about the impulse buy. Get a credit card. You don't have anything to worry about. If the guy don't accept it, move on.
Buy a Taurus G2C.
I mean, that'll do the job.
You can get those, and you can get those in 40 too. So yeah,
I was going to say another two things. One with the Tokarev round, you show the XTP bullet loads and stuff like that. You got to remember those guns weren't designed to fire that type of bullet. They're designed around a ball round, so you really want to check it out. And that can get expensive. You're going to want to fire probably 2-3 boxes to make sure it's going to cycle reliably with something other than a ball round. And I don't know. I have a CZ52 like you do, and it will cycle the hollow point. I've never tried that one you mentioned. I've tried PPU used to make a hollow point round for it. I tried those and they cycled. But not every gun's going to be the same because they're just not what they were made for. And as far as the cheap 357 SIG, too, I was going to say, if you want to get into a Glock 357 SIG cheap, you can get the Glock 23 and 22 police trades.
Yeah.
In 40. and a conversion barrel is like right around $100. So you could drop in a SIG conversion barrel for them for, I know the Gen 3 Glock 22s were going for like $350 around here. So you'd have $450 in one.
I may be wrong. You don't have to start with the 357 SIG Glock and then swap out to 40. You can take a 40 caliber Glock and you can just do barrels. I thought that you had to go up and then downgrade like the power.
No. Same frame as the Glock 23, Glock 22. It's just different.
Never doing it.
Yeah,
So.
you can do that with Smith & Wesson MPs too. The thing that a lot of people don't realize that if you go with a lighter bullet in a 40 Smith & Wesson round, you're going to be getting the same velocities as what a 357 SIG would get.
That's true too. If you go down to like a 135 and a 40 Smith & Wesson, you're pretty close.
So now, what about that SIG P229? Because I can get a 40 cal 229 or 229R for like $400, $429. Can I then purchase the 229 357 SIG barrel and swap out the barrel?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, because I thought you had to start. I mean, maybe I'm okay. I didn't realize that. I mean, I was curious because I've been able to find a 357 SIG P229 that wasn't $900. You know,
I believe Night Strike has done that with either his 229 or with his 320. He's converted it from 40 Smith & Wesson to 357 SIG.
The thing with the SIG is the barrels are usually more money than what like the Glock. There's just more available Glock barrels out there aftermarket in 357 SIG than the SIG ones, as far as I know. They're usually a little cheaper for the Glock, but the SIG's the same way. You just need a new barrel, and I think you need a little stiffer recoil spring.
Yeah. I'm just looking at some of the comments. Marco Dunn says, my CZ chewed up anything I'd put through it. Just a few questions about how soon should you, talking about just simply purchasing some firearm. Rich White, what'd you say there? Oh, you're talking about the different velocities and stuff like that. So, yeah. Scott P79 says, even frangible ammo will go through drywall. Yeah, don't ever make any assumptions about your ammo that it is or is not going to penetrate. You know, they say, oh, there's a couple walls between the kid's bedroom and my attacker. I'm going to be fine if I just take that shot. You know, oh man, you really want to be very, very judicious about the shots that you take and what's on the other side. So, all right, real quick before we totally move away from it, any other questions about the gun trusts at all? We good? I mean, there's a lot of specifics and there's a lot of state-specific rules and regulations. Somebody had a question, well, what if you transfer the firearm to somebody that lives in, say, California or New York? The trust, if they, I don't know, that's a good question. Because it is, man, I don't know. I'm not sure. It may be able to be designated to a person in one of those states, but they might not be able to receive it unless it follows the gun laws for that state. Or maybe it has to be modified to match those gun laws in that state because it's going to have to follow whatever the rules and laws say for the person that's going to be the recipient for it. So, I mean, it would belong to the trust. It would stay in the trust. You might have access to that item, but if it's in a state that doesn't allow that particular type of firearm, it's not a California compliant weapon, you may not be able to take legal possession of it in your state.
We have people in PA that try and do that are from New York State that have like summer homes in PA. Because New York State's the same as California. You can't own NFA items. And yeah, it doesn't work that way. And it has to follow the laws of the state that you were in. Or if you're setting up the trust, you have to set up the trust in a state that allows that stuff. The trust doesn't override the state laws. Yeah,
unfortunately, which it's ridiculous we even have to have these things, but it is what it is. So, all right. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. I really wish Foos was here. Foos, where are you at, man? I sent you another invite, buddy. Maybe you're working today. I don't know. We're going to talk about 9mm Major, and I was doing some research on this round. Many times I just read the Wikipedia listing for the round. I'll pre-read it to make sure it seems to be true or apparently true before I read it to the audience. Most of what I see about caliber descriptions and stuff on Wikipedia is fairly reliable, but there's nothing on 9mm Major over there on Wikipedia. So I've been doing some research on what 9mm Major is. Essentially, it is a wildcat version of the 9mm. It's a wildcat round. It's not something... It's one of those things where you can purchase ammunition that is loaded in 9mm Major. So let's just talk about kind of what it is and where it came from and so on. So here we go, 9mm Major. Okay, so it says, and if you guys saw John Wick 3, I think there was a reference to it as one of the ammunitions that he puts in his 1911 pattern pistol before they go take on the bad guys towards the end of the movie. And so anyway, I honestly just watched John Wick 3 for the first time a couple weeks ago, and that little detail completely, I was like, 9mm major, what? And then I just continued to watch the movie. But anyway, it says that typical 9mm ammunition is loaded to SAMI specifications of approximately 32,000 psi, chamber pressure, which results in a velocity between 850 and 1,200 feet per second, depending on the weight of the projectile. 9mm major ammunition is loaded much, much hotter. Typical velocity for 115 grain projectile exceeds 1,550 feet per second in order to reach a power factor of 165 for, I believe, IPSC competition. So it's able to compete against 38 Super, 40, and so on. Okay, so one of the reasons why you want to go and shoot 9mm major for competition is because it allows for a couple more rounds of capacity in a defined size magazine. So you have that edge of having a few extra rounds. And by running the 9mm major, you're going to be reaching that power factor that allows you to use that caliber in that particular class of competition. The extra velocity would typically cause excess recoil and make a two-tapping difficult, but the addition of a compensator reduces this recoil to be equal to that of standard 9mm ammunition. So the guns themselves, I was just looking up the firearms, and the guns themselves, the majority of what I'm seeing out there are custom builds where you can basically choose the options. It's almost like buying a car. Let me just go ahead and share this with you. So if you're going to look for a 9mm major pistol, right? What exactly are you going to find? So here's like S&J Customs. Okay, they don't give you a price. It does get 5 stars on one review. So this is the SJC Open Pistol 9mm minor major package build. So you can see what the gun looks like right here. Looks like it's a Glock. I can't even tell if it's a 19 possibly. It's been completely modified and customized and so on. You can choose the comp mount magwell colors, right? The upgrades to the magwell, the compensator, you can choose the frame weight edition if you want it. Generation model, you can choose Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4, or M&P full size. So that's the platform they're going to be building it off of. And then they talk about all the modifications that happen to the firearm, so it's going to be safe for you to fire. They even test fire too to make sure it's not going to blow up on you when you use it. So it's not something that you want to fire through just your standard 9mm handgun because of the excess pressures. It would be dangerous. But there are companies out there that will make you a race gun, so to speak, if you want to fire 9mm major. Let's see. Other information about it. It says the end result, all the benefit of major classification for competition when it comes to scoring with maximum magazine capacity. So what does this mean to the average shooter? Not much really. 9mm major ammunition is typically hand-loaded and not something available on the store shelf. It's also dangerous to fire in a pistol not designated for the excess pressure generated by loading enough powder to reach the velocity needed. So I don't know exactly what those pressures are, but here it goes on and says typical 9mm loads range from 3 to 4.5 grains of powder, while many major loads exceed 7.5 to 8 grains of powder, resulting in pressure well above the SAMI limit for 9mm. Most handguns caution against the use of plus P and plus P plus ammunition. 9mm major loads can generate pressure above plus P plus, making them unsafe for most off-the-shelf pistols. The Terran Tactical Combat Master 2011 featured in the film is specifically designed to accommodate these excessive pressures, as are many other pistols marketed towards competitive shooting. And then it talks about the additional velocity benefit you would have from this round. They talk about some armor penetration and things like that, but the main thing is going to be the increased capacity that you're going to get for competition, which could shave, precious seconds off of your shooting scenario for your competition. So, Squib, I got a question for you. If they say that typical 9mm loads range from 3 to 4.5 grains of powder, major loads in excess of 7.5 to 8 grains of powder, Squib, do you have any idea what kind of PSI we're talking about here? Because there was some debate about this last week in the show when we talked about it.
Nah, I don't deal with PSI when it comes to shooting. I mean, I follow the recommendations, and I like to load ammo hot, but I don't put anything in the danger range. As far as any of that stuff, now that's more like an AWAG or Calaveras question, because for me, that's more an engineering thing. I mean, really about the only time I ever even pay attention to that is maybe if there's some information about an older gun and what it's capable of handling, with the caveat of putting modern ammunition in an older gun, how, what that receiver's willing to take or something like that, or differences between, maybe an interchangeable caliber like 5.56 and 2.23. But otherwise, yeah, that's kind of too intellectual of a question for me.
No, that's fine. No, I got you completely. And looking at it, they're saying that if basic 9mm is loaded to 32,000 psi, could we say doubling the powder is going to double the psi? I don't know if it's exponential. There are calculators that you can use. I just didn't get a chance to do it. Actually, ship that process off to Foos for this weekend. Get some psi numbers. So yeah.
When it comes
what
to
about it just creating a spike? What about it just creating a short spike as opposed to see different powder shapes? Mm-hmm. Have different burn rates and things like that. So you might get a quick flash or you might get a slower. I mean, it's still happening in a fraction of a second. So for us but I don't know, certain powder compositions and shapes will denote that sort of thing, the burn rate and if it's going to spike the pressure in there versus something that's a little bit more consistent. Once again, it's engineering stuff that I don't quite understand, but I don't know that necessarily doubling the powder. I would say it would depend on the powder.
There's tons of different variables going on when it comes to measuring pressure, and like you said, is the burn rate of the powder, what kind of primer you use, how thick the case of the wall is, how thick the case wall is. How much the bullet is seated in or out of the case, how much distance there is between the starting of the rifling and the tip of the bullet, or the ogive of the bullet where it engages. There's tons of different variables going on to essentially look at pressure. You can have, here's what I've noticed when I got the final load done for my 300 Win Mag. I was using a particular powder, and the farther I seeded out the bullet, I was using the same charge, the same powder charge every single time. The farther I seeded that bullet out, the higher my pressure was, and you can tell that from what the primer looks like when you shoot the case. It'll do what's called either cratering, or it'll flatten out the primer, which normally there's a nice little concave ring around when you seat a primer. You can see a good picture of that right there with that 9mm case. What it'll do is it'll actually push that primer out so that it's completely flush with the case.
Okay.
And that's a sign of very high pressure. So just by moving the bullet a few thousandths of an inch will change your pressure.
This is over at Atlanta Arms. There is actually, surprisingly, it's funny, I go to AmmoSeek and I can't get 9mm Major to pop up on ammoseek.com, but just do a basic Google search and there are several companies that are loading 9mm Major ammunition. So for example, here's 147 grain jacketed hollow point, $36.99 for a box of 50. So you're going to pay a premium price for it. I mean, I don't know if somebody would want that. Hey, if guys have the money, that if you want to shoot it for competition, more power to you. It does give you the SAMI warning here saying it does exceed the pressure specifications, 1,170 feet per second. Now, for 147 grain round, in my opinion, AWAG, would you agree that's pretty quick? For 147, 1170, that's basically 115 grain territory, isn't it, for just a standard load? No. AWAG, you still there? No? Okay. So anyway, I think with your 115 grain 9. Oh no, that's fine. That's fine. So that level, I mean, that's a pretty potent round, right? 147 grain 9 traveling.
147 grain to my 357 SIG. I don't have the box on hand.
Yeah.
I'll find the velocities for that. Sorry, it's kind of weird. I can't type and talk at the same time.
So again, it's an interesting caliber to consider. Obviously, you want to make sure that it's safe. And if you buy a race gun that's been built for 9mm Major, that'd be the safest way to do it. But you're also looking at some pretty pricey builds. I mean, the things I was seeing was in excess of $3,000. So, but if you want to compete with it, hey, more power to you. It's kind of an interesting little round. So I don't know.
Yeah, 357 SIG uses a 147 grain bullet. It gets out at about 1250 FPS. So you're pushing 357 SIG territory.
And you're using it reaches that power factor that's necessary for that particular type of competition. So you can, you get that extra, again, it's about getting those extra 1 to 2, 3 rounds out of the magazine because you have a certain magazine length that you're allowed to use for that, for certain shooting competitions. And so that gives you that advantage. when you're actually competing. So yeah, it's interesting little caliber. It's a little pricey, but who knows if it'll become a little more popular thanks to movies like John Wick. I mean, something like that might get promoted a bit more and get a little more exposure. So it's hard telling. So
going back to the pressure thing, if you're shoving 7.5 or 8 grains of powder in a 9mm case, that almost has to be a compressed load. When you compress powder like that, you're way changing the powder characteristics and the burn rate of stuff. That almost always leads to some kind of a pressure spike. So, like, anytime you compress a load, it's going to change that the way it works. So it wouldn't be like a straight up, you couldn't just say double the powder is double the pressure. It actually could be a lot more if you're compressing the powder down in the case.
Yeah.
It goes back to like what AWAG was saying with moving the bullet around. When you start compressing powder, you start spiking pressures quick.
I'm just glad we got an engineer on the panel.
This is good stuff. And we got AWAG too, right? We got 2 engineers on the panel, man. What do we got here? So Artisan Tony says, powder makes all the difference. One batch of my shotgun hand loads just rolled out of the barrel one time. Yeah, that's a possibility. It's a possibility. So Artisan Tony says 40 to 48,000 PSI is what I'm finding. Yeah, thank you, Tony. I was kind of curious, so it doesn't necessarily double the PSI. I'm just, because it is definitely pushing a lot of these materials to kind of their limit, especially for just a semi-automatic handgun platform. Justin Gibbons says, Patreon? Yeah, Justin, Travis P11 is my Patreon channel if you're interested in checking it out. I put the videos out early for patrons over there. We do monthly drawings, and everybody that becomes a patron of mine gets a sticker. You get a Travis P11 sticker, so there you go. Lots of good stuff. I've only got about 48 patrons, so you got a pretty good chance of winning every month. And we've had a unique winner, I think, the last 6 months that we've been doing our drawing. I just had a drawing. Gizzard Gary actually just won it a week or 2 ago. So, yeah. All right. Any other discussion on 9mm Major, guys? Anything you want to say? Good to go? Oh, here we go. Reiki1 says, how comparable is 38 Super to 9mm Major in a competition use? It's basically on par with 38 Super in terms of performance. The difference is that you get the extra rounds in the magazine that you don't get with 38 Super. So that was, the power factor, it reaches that power factor that 38 Super is in also. So it's just, I don't know if it's necessarily cheaper than 38 Super, but you get the extra round capacity, which is a big one. G23 says, I run 150 grain 40 cal at 1,200 feet per second. Not bad. Not bad. Cool. And Justin Gibbons says, I just found it, LOL. Yeah, no problem, man. Great. Yeah, check it out. Again, just being part of it, it gets you a little bit of early access and a few other perks, which is nice. And then the money is used to usually buy firearms and ammo for the channel. That's typically what I do with it. I put back a pot and then buy a firearm with it every couple months, which is really nice, or a lower or an upper, kind of depending on how the month is looking. So let's see. Anything else on your minds, guys? Any other topics you want to discuss, or anything else you want to bring up, or questions you might have at all? Nada? All right, so I think we'll just go ahead and wrap it up, guys. Everybody, please be safe. Make sure that you check out the local news. Make sure you know what's going on before you decide to head out with your family today. It is Saturday morning. A lot of people want to go do some stuff, but just make sure you don't drive into something. And again, make sure you have a plan. Make sure if you have your personal security detail all figured out. Make sure you know what you're going to do to take care of yourself. I want everybody to be safe, right? And so before we go ahead and finish up here, let's let the panel go ahead and say a few final words. So, Black Hat Outdoors, anything you want to say before we go, bud?
No, not really. I do my thing. Check me out on YouTubes and over on Instagram. Trying to get some more videos out here pretty soon. So,
cool.
I had a couple of knife reviews I'm working on and stuff like that. Hopefully, I got my new knife and I got a new Spyderco coming in here. Hopefully, it's all there when I get home today. So.
Have you ever been to their factory store? I think it's in Golden, Colorado. I think that's where they're based out of, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that would be sweet, though.
I missed an opportunity to go there because it was only about 5 hours away from where I lived. It was just kind of sort of close to Denver. But yeah, that's and they also got the Coors Brewing Company, I think, is based out of there. Is that right? Or Anheuser-Busch, I think it's Busch, maybe. He's got a brewery up in Golden also. So yeah, cool stuff, man. All right, Squib, anything you want to say before we go?
Yeah, I'm going to include a link here in the chat for a channel. It's called
yes.
Small Caliber Arms Review, or Reviews. No, Small Caliber Arms Review there. And he's a guy down in Ohio. He's got his own range, and he does videos where he reviews guns, not just go out there and shoot them, but he actually takes them apart and does things like that. And he's got some pretty good stuff. So I just recommend going over there, checking out his channel. And after this is done, I'm going to release my riot video because, why let a good tragedy go to waste, right?
So you have a new series you're pushing out there. What's it called? So Stupid, or what?
I look so stupid.
I look so stupid.
So stupid. What I've done as my thing for this whole mandatory face covering, which by the way, hardly anybody is enforcing and whatever, right? Is that I decided to get a keffiyeh, which is that Arabic terrorist scarf, right? So I got a couple different ones, and I wear it around my neck. And if I go into some place and they say, you've got to have a mask, I got to decide, do I want to turn around or do I absolutely have to be here? And all right, I'll put on the mask. And so I've been wearing it around my neck, and I've been getting compliments on it and stuff like that. And okay, sure, whatever. Well, one day I'm sitting in the car.
Get that at, brother,
Yeah, actually, yeah. And and so one day I was sitting in the car before I went into a place, and I said, I wonder what I look like wearing this thing. So I pulled it up over, and I got my hat on and my sunglasses, and I go, I look so stupid. And I go, hey, there's an idea. So I'm just trying to do short videos where I just talk about my opinion about what's going on with this whole COVID thing, in addition to my regular COVID-19 videos, which are longer, and they're more or less rants. They're my observations. They're my opinions. Some of the stuff isn't necessarily fact-based. It's just my experience. And if somebody doesn't agree with me, I don't care. If you don't want to watch them, I don't care. I've lost I think 3 subscribers over these videos. Goodbye. I don't care. It's opinion. Everybody's entitled to use put their opinion out here. And now that, Trump's trying to do things to make these platforms more, evenly balanced, I hope that we see more people out there putting out their opinion. I do think it's a good idea to put a disclaimer out there to say this is opinion, not fact. But, it's just my thing. And if somebody doesn't want to tune in, it doesn't matter.
So here's something I want people to understand. If you cannot stand a person, if you can't stand the way they sound, if you can't stand the opinions they express, I can understand if you don't want to follow that person. But I really think that you can make a much more intelligent argument if you try to, even though it might not be rational, just understand the perspective of people that disagree with you on things, to try to see it through their eyes. I'm not saying agree with them. I'm just saying if you can see the foundation of their argument, if there's even a foundation there, you can have a more intelligent argument in the effort at trying to change their opinion or change their viewpoint on things. And I've done that many times with family members on firearms just in the last 5 years alone. And so I think it's not a bad thing. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I do listen to some liberal talk radio. I do listen to NPR, and the main thing is I'm trying to get their perspective. I don't enjoy it. I don't do it because I want to support them. I do it because I want to see their perspective. I think maybe knowing your enemy is a good thing to do. And so think about that, and also kind of provide some filler if there's nothing else to listen to, right? So try to see their perspective so you can argue against them. So yeah, so Squib, I think it's sad people would want to take off because they disagree with your opinion, but some people are just that reactive sometimes. It's like, oh, you're this, you're pro this, you're that.
It's a free country.
I know.
Yeah,
I just
look,
tell people to try to take different perspective on things. Yeah.
Well, Kingpin has brought this up before. We'll be in these shows and we'll disagree, and we're on air, and sometimes we're debating, sometimes we're arguing, but most of us,
yelling and cursing.
And then most of us afterward, we're still friends, even though we have a difference of opinion. We come from different backgrounds. We have different goals. We can still be friends. And then there's those other people that know one little thing and you're done forever. Okay. That just lets you know this isn't the kind of person you want to be friends with. I'm okay with arguing and fighting with you guys. I'm okay with some people have made some comments. I found out that I've got some of my information wrong. And I have some plans here to do a video to fix one of the things I did that was wrong. I had some issues making the video, but the whole point is the comments and stuff give the opportunity for somebody to present their side, their opinion, their experience. And maybe I change my mind, but maybe I don't. But if your goal is to convert me and change me, don't talk to me, because that's not, I do the same thing with some people think that some of these videos I'm trying to turn people into, I don't know, little squibtards or something. I don't know what it is.
Oh, God.
Right? It's my opinion. If you don't agree, this is a free country. You don't have to agree with it. I'm not trying to convert anybody. I want you to be you. If you see what I say and you agree with it, or you see what I say and you say, I never looked at it like that, that's fine. That's great. And if you don't, that's fine. That's great. But there are people out there that, nope, you've got to be in lockstep with me or else. And the great thing is, I don't have any sponsors. I don't have any Patreon. I don't have any of that stuff. So I don't have to worry about what I say or do on my channel. Like I said, I lost 3 subscribers over this. I don't care. So I like the fact that, people that watch these shows, they don't get to hear the off-air stuff that we do. We can talk this stuff out later, or call each other, text each other, whatever. If it's really that bad of a thing, but most of us, we just let it go and we move on to the next topic, right?
Yeah, we got our lives to live. We don't get all hung up on it and put a division between us, All right. AWAG, anything to say before we go?
Other than my mic button is not working correctly.
That's all right.
Just like Squib said, it's just like it's like crying over spilled milk when people have differing opinions, and then if you're, like you said, if you're not in lockstep with them, that they get all all up in arms, like, oh, how could you do that? Whatever. That's besides the point. Thanks for having me on, Travis. Always a pleasure.
No problem, man. I apologize. My parents, even though I told them I'm doing a 8 a.m. show, they still want to call right now. No problem, man. I appreciate you being here since, I don't even know, like episode 5 or something, episode 4. Yeah. Here we are 138 episodes later, 4 years later. AWAG's all grown up. You were like 12 when you started this, weren't you?
No, I was just a little baby. Yep,
there you go. Little baby AWAG. It's all right. Well, I'm glad we could raise you and have some important part in being a positive influence in your life, AWAG.
Thanks, guys. Much appreciated.
Or a negative influence.
I'm my own negative influence.
How about a realistic influence? Yes. All right. If my dad calls back again, I'm going to put him on speakerphone just so you guys can all listen. We'll just put him on the air and see what he says. And they keep calling. I'm like, dude, I text him like, dude, I'm doing a live show right now. I hate pushing off my family like that, but this is all right. And finally, Rich White. Anything you want to say, Rich?
Yeah. Thanks for the invite. And Squib and I have gotten into arguments on shows before, and he's still sitting in Arizona Ghost Riders Cup. So, things work themselves out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we get things. I mean, people get emotional and they have their opinions about things, but we do, we stay civil about it, which is the difference between us and a lot of people that are out there. And I think that's important. So, yeah. All right. Well, hey, let's see who is joining in over on the YouTube side. We got some Squib Load. We got Poor Conservative out there. Fluffy 10mm Jeep guy says, hey, man, we're all human, right? We all bleed red. Let's see. G23 says, just remember that in lots of states you can catch a felony for carrying a firearm and having a mask to be safe. That's a very interesting point. It's a good point. Poor Conservative was out there. Aaron Mortenson's been watching. Sketchy Rolls out there. Wheeled and Well Armed said, good show. First time here. Wheeled and Well Armed, thank you very much. You got a lot of back episodes you got to catch up on. DM Foss says, everybody have a great day. Justin Gibbons is out there. Gizzard Gary's in there too. Defense Dad, tacos and French fries. Reiki One's out there watching. Question for the panel, is 41 AE any good? Hey, my dad keeps calling. Let's go ahead and take the phone call and see what he has to say. Hey, what's going on, Dad? Yo, what's up? Hey, we're live right now, Dad. You're actually being broadcasted on YouTube for the world to watch.
Okay. I'll call you later.
All right, talk to you later, Dad. All right. Bye. Just got to let the man know that I'm okay. So, all right. Let's see here. By the way,
did he think that you were caught up in a riot?
Probably. He's like, you got your body armor on, bro. By the way, my father I sound exactly like my dad. If you listen to my dad talk, we got same voice. It's freaking. Now that's how it should be because I got most of his DNA. But it is kind of funny. So yeah, I guess he wants to make sure that I'm safe out here in the suburbs. So I'm fine. I feel safe. So anyway, where were we at? We're at live stream here. Oh. Reiki One says, question for the panel, is 41 AE any good? 41 Action Express any good? I have no experience with 41 Action Express. Real quick, guys, can you answer that question? I don't know. I mean, I'm a fan of 44 Mag if you're going to go like a Desert Eagle platform, but...
Yeah. What I remember, 41 AE is about the same as 40. They are basically almost the same.
That's 40. 40 Smith.
I think that's what it is, too. It was basically... an Israeli developed round do basically the same thing that 40 was developed for here, and it never really took off anywhere, including in Israel. So it was one of the rounds that was developed for the Jericho.
Oh, okay. All right. So Ricky 1, there's your answer, bud. Squibload's out there and over here. Justin Gibbons, Artisan Tony's watching. We had some G-Webs out there. Rich White's out there and over here. Hamid Chekahawi says 25 here. Totally butchered your last name there. Scott P79's watching. Marco Dunn. Anybody else watching today? I didn't see any Midnight Range. He must be sleeping in this morning. Let's see. G-Webs, DM Foz. That's pretty much about it. DMM Racer 321. Thanks for watching. And Philo's out there too. Philo, I need your address. You got a Patreon package you won months ago. I want to get that in the mail. I'm going to keep bothering you until you get me that address, Philo. If you don't want the package, let me know. I will award it to another person. So, but until then, I'm going to sit on it. Solo Yacker says, good morning from sunny Florida. Hello, Solo Yacker. Good morning from a rainy, cold Nebraska. Sam 2A says hello, and Net Flutter says good show. So, otherwise, guys, this has been Caliber Corner episode number 138, where we entertain the topics of the gun trusts and NFA trusts. Again, just getting the idea out there for you to do your own research. We're not giving legal advice, but look into it, especially if you've got a decent-sized armory or if you got something that you want to pass on to family members or grant access to multiple family members or anyone. Consider getting yourself a gun trust. We also talked about 9mm Major, just the basics of it, what it's all about, why does it exist, what's the importance of it. It is a big deal for people that are competitive shooters. I want to thank the panel for being here today. Everybody else that joined in, we had some Sandhill Shooter was here. Pat Hirsch was also here too for a little while. And so thank you guys for joining in. Otherwise, we'll have another episode next Saturday, so there won't be an episode tomorrow night. I'm going to be pushing out some AKV videos if you haven't seen them yet. I did do a basic range test of the AKV. I'm going to say something about this right now. It is very, very easy to fire very, very fast. Unfortunately, when I did my range test, I was not in a place where I could do so without possibly getting myself in trouble with the range. So I do need to find a place where we can show the potential of this thing because it's very cool. Got a very sweet trigger, standard trigger, not the ALG, but it is a fun little toy to play with. And I might be setting it up with the can here. I might be getting a suppressor and a trust myself very soon. That might be the next thing that we pick up. Got to get an optic on it, and then we're going to go from there. But otherwise, that's it. Guys, I want you to have fun. I want you to be safe. And as you know, we will talk to you soon. Everybody take care and have a great weekend, all right? Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye, Alicia.
Bye-bye.
Adios, Alicia. Alicia, don't go to Target. Don't go to Target, Alicia.
Yes, stay